Hi everybody, it's Suzanne from Ohio. I have some textile art projects to show you here today. What you see here is a little slow stitch applique type piece that I made, and I've enjoyed it so much I wanted to share it with you. I started this piece out as a possible um, journal cover, which would have folded like this as an inward control flap, protective flap for the edge of the pages. And then this would have folded over and had a closure of some kind on it. But the more I worked on this, the more I liked it for a wall hanging. So what I did was finish it out in such a way that it could be used for either or. And if you notice here, I put hanging corners on both of the corners. And let me show you. If you have, and this would probably work with a very small dowel rod or one of those very long shish kebab skewers. And you can get those at Dollar Tree. So you just have your stick going across here and slide it up under these corners and it holds it. This piece is stiff enough that you wouldn't have to worry about it sagging in the middle. But I'd already put the pocket on it for a journal, so I decided to leave it that way. Oh, there's telling you about the hanging corners and the pocket. That's what I put in there when I took my Etsy photographs. Okay, so this is on my Etsy site, and I want to explain to you how I made it. And um, also, I have something else to show you here. It's all the pieces and parts for something very similar to this, and it's on my Etsy site as a kit. So if this interests you, take a look at the kit or just follow what I'm going to tell you here, and you can put together your own. So if you remember from any of my other videos, I found these textiles, and they were yay big. And I found 6 or 8 of them at the thrift store, and they were unfinished. They were somebody's practice pieces from probably learning how to use their embroidery machine. So the ones that were totally unfinished, what I did was I overpainted them and to make them look complete. So this is an overpainted rescued textile, and I had it on the front there, and I was just going to have a plain back. And I just wanted to applique something. I love needle turned applique, and I just wanted to work on something. That day I had no prepared projects ready or anything like that, which is amazing. So I appliqued this birdhouse on here, and then I used some of my hand-dyed lace and cut out the leaves and put the viney twinies on there and a little bit of embroidery, some bullion stitches and French knots. Okay, so that's how it ended up with the birdhouse on there, and it got cuter and cuter as it went, so I will use it as a wall hanging probably. But it's for sale on my Etsy site, and you could use it for anything you want, even a table topper. And I embroidered the words right here, the story. Now you could easily snip that off of there and put something else on there, or just add another piece of lace, whatever you'd want to do. But I want to show you how this goes together. And when I explain the kit, you'll understand it a little bit better, and you could easily do your own. All you'd have to have is a focal point item. In this case, it's this. But you could also use a large flower motif. You could fussy cut from a piece of fabric, or you can print something off on fabric on your computer. Whatever you want can be your focal point, and then you can add a needle turned applique birdhouse if you so choose. If you're not into needle turning, there's ways that you could do raw edge applique on this as well. I wouldn't do that in hand stitch it if you were going to use it as a journal cover. I don't know if the edges would hold up, but for a wall hanging, it would be totally fine. All right, so let's move on here. What I have under here, whoops, I better move this one out of the way. This is what I wanted to show you. Thirdly, okay, if I can find some place to lay this, hold on. All right, here's the one that I put together just for, let's call it the first draft. And what you see here is, here you have another one of those rescued textiles. I'm not sure what kind of flower that was supposed to be. And they had stitched it in this 2 shades of watermelon color. And that's a hard fabric or hard color to match. But lo and behold, wow, did I have a thrift store find the other day. I bought a grab bag. I'm always buying fabric there, but I bought a grab bag full of scraps. And they don't allow you to open it, so I was really taking a chance. And what I decided to get it, and when I went through it, there was one little piece, I mean one little piece, of this novelty print that had this watermelon colored flowers in it. So I dug through and I found that, which matches this color, and I'd already put this background on here, which has the same watermelon tones in it. And so that's where I started yesterday. And what I did and what I do is, and you can do the same, pull out any scraps of fabric that you think might work and any scraps of lace that might work. And don't worry if you have picked up every exact color in the project, because you can add slow stitch with floss to it to bridge a gap or add any tones or colors that you need to make it all work together. So here's how I start. On the back, I have a piece of Pellon, and I buy all my Pellon at the thrift store, and of course it's every different kind, and it's every different shape and size. But I always try to have a medium to a lightweight of Pellon on the back of any stitch project, including this one. Inside here is the same thing that I'm showing you right now. And then, in this case, it's a piece of warm and natural quilt batting. And that's just because I had it. I also like to use felt. Now, not that pressed down real tight craft felt, but the kind of felt you can buy in squares. Well, all of it comes in little squares, or off the bolt. And I find lots of felt at my thrift store. As a matter of fact, lots of colors too. And if I know it's going to be well hidden inside a piece, I don't care what color it is, as long as it doesn't show through the fabrics. Like this could have been navy blue. I wouldn't care, because you're never going to see it and you're never going to wash it. So, piece of some kind of something puffy, but with a low loft. Low, not high, because it makes it too difficult when you're stitching. And then for the background, and then right on top of that batting, I start laying what I call my backgrounds. Now, sometimes they end up showing, sometimes I end up covering them up. So I want to use something pretty oh, I don't want to say neutral, but pretty insignificant because the background is not the focal point. And I found this in that grab bag, cute little print, strawberries, cherries, but it has the same watermelon color as over here. So I laid a piece of that down, and I had originally backed this piece with this watermelon color, and all these tones match. Nothing fights with each other. So um, I was looking at this, and I went into I have a whole bag of nothing but scrap white laces and off-white, and I picked out a few, and then I have a bag of hand-dyed lace. Some of it I did with polymer bath dye bath, and some of it I did with alcohol ink. So I found some colors that worked, and the idea was to frame it around. Now let's go back to this one for a minute, and let's see if you can see. I put a lot of scrap lace everywhere. Some of it ends up showing up real well. Some of it just disappears and melds into the background. And that's fine because I try to use one principle of composition, and that is to blend or blur. And I don't want a straight edge of lace not blending and blurring into the focal point. Because when you blur it, that helps bring your eye into your focal point. All right, back to that in a minute. So this piece here could possibly use some more thinner laces to help blur. Like right here on this edge, and let me show you what this is. It's just a cut edge, and I'll explain that in a minute. I could put a real thin piece of nondescript lace right here and help blur that in. Or I could leave it as is and really make it contrast when I stitch around the edge. So I'm just taking you through my thought process. So this little scrap here, that's all I had. And I cut the corner off of it here so it wouldn't come up here and cover up this flower. So I took the scrap from this corner and I put it over here and put it underneath the edge of that flower. And there's a pink flower and a almost white flower, and they don't blend. But I will put some slow stitch on there to blur that demarcation line or blend it together. Now, the top of the fabric has like a part of a petal missing here, and I cut it, just barely fussy cut it to follow the edge of those flowers. Well, I have a choice now of when I put this birdhouse on, I can either scoot it up here so you can see the top of the flowers, or I can cover it up with the birdhouse and the platform that the birdhouse is going to sit on. And of course, this is the pole that holds the birdhouse. And those are just ideas. You know, as I start stitching, sometimes I totally change my idea. But that's what I'm liking right now. I think I'll just partially cover that up. All right, that's all the elements on top. But then I had some other ideas because this kit is available on my Etsy store, and I just wanted to go over it so that you can adjust it or change it or rework it any way you want. If I was to work this piece, I thought of a few things. Let me tell you what they were. This piece back here, I feel like you have two options. You have a lot of negative space here in the beige background. You can either leave that as is and do a lot of slow stitching, either campus style or Boreal style, or I do a lot of twirly, viney, twiny kind of stitching, and I'll bet you can't see this because it is so light, but I just meander and twirl and stitch wherever I know the elements needed. Besides that, I like the viney twinies. But you could slow stitch in these areas, or you can cut this out a little away from the design and expose more of this watermelon color, and then slow stitch on top of that with a very contrasting thread. So many options that you can do. I feel like this piece has enough lace on it. However, in the kit, I will be sending a few more scraps and of lace, fabric, and floss to match the kit. So, if you're interested in creating a one-of-a-kind and make this your own with your own touches to it, it's available on my Etsy site. And again, you can use it for a book cover, a tabletop, or a wall hanging. The front to a tote bag would be beautiful, just something special. So let me put that aside and bring the other one back. And I will literally show you what process I go through when I'm ready to look at something or put it together. So I had one more. Let me get all this up here. I had one more of these rescued textiles. And this is how far I got. Let me move these straight pins. Gee whiz. You'd think I wasn't organized, wouldn't you? Hey, this point in the game, I'm doing well. All right. So let's go over this again. Oh, this is interesting. I'll show you. This Pellon piece, I patchworked because, like I said, I have a lot of, wow, where are those shadows coming from? Okay, maybe it's in the fabric itself. I hope you can even see this. But I have a lot of small scraps because I use from the thrift store. And the Pellon serves two purposes. It stiffens up the project a little bit, but most importantly, it gives somewhere for your needle stitches to hug into. So I can see that I have terrible lighting. I am so sorry. I don't know what to do about it. Hold on a minute. I'm going to turn this natural lamp off and see if it, whoa, that's terrible. Terrible. I'll just turn it back on and move to the side. Move it away a little bit. I have no idea what's going on. Well, this is just how I started. Again, don't worry if your Pellon is patched, but make sure you get some on there. And it makes a world of difference in your stitches. On this piece, I have a piece of felt and a simple piece of cotton, just like I said, as a background. And this piece was partially done with purple threads, but not complete, so I had to finish it out with purple. So this morning, I gathered together, I'm going to try this again. I gathered together anything that I thought might work. There's light pink in here, so I pulled a piece of light pink. I have one tiny scrap of this with beautiful colors and it blends. This little rainbow piece has some shades that I might use over here in this corner, as well as this blue. If I use this, then I'll snip out a piece of this blue that matches, so it will pull it all together as a color family. And again, all these I found in that scrap bag. This is a pretty piece of um, 2 shades of lavender and a light pink with a polka dot and a light pink mottled look. And then here's a little piece of, excuse me, Anne of Green Gables print. And I thought, man, the colors are right. This blue matches this blue. The greens don't fight with each other. The pinks and purple match. I might find a place to use a little piece of that. I needed to think about this bright green, and they had already done some of this in a chartreuse, so I had to pick up on that chartreuse. There's a piece that might work. I don't think that one will. It's a blue-green instead of a yellow-green. And there was a little piece of this alphabet print, and this goes nicely with the lavender goes with this, and the blue in here matches this blue. And I just don't want them to, they don't have to match perfect, but I don't want them to fight with each other. So I pulled out these, and then I even had this, and that's just takes it into a totally different venue because it looks more calico-y country from, little dated. And that's wonderful. Wonderful if you're doing primitive or country style stuff. So I'm going to lay that aside. This is a possibility 50-50. I like this. And here's an intermediate shade. I like this for just a touch. I like this. I do not like this green. This is iffy for me, but I do have to pick up that bright chartreuse, so I might have to use it. I like this, and of course the light pink. And that's how I would start. I would figure out where I needed some interest, and then put a few pieces, and I mean few, because these will tend to be the background also, except for this one. It would probably be a hedgerow of flowers, either going down this side or along the bottom, something like that. You could fussy cut the flowers out and cluster them. And then the next thing I need to think about are colors for the birdhouse, if I'm going to do another birdhouse, and I am. So what color would I choose for a birdhouse? Typically some kind of white or off-white, just like on the previous one that I showed you. And then you should begin to choose your fabrics for creating that birdhouse. And typically a lighter house, although I've done them with flowers all over them, but if you're going to do that, it needs to be a plain background. So something that you like, a roof, a stand, a pole, and the holes. Now the holes here look quite big, but I cut them. If you're going to needle turn applique them, they'll become 1/4 inch smaller all the way around. If you're going to raw edge applique them, you would need to cut them a little shorter. Now for the last and final stage, and it really goes in 3 or 4 stages, and if you think of it that way, it becomes very easy and very manageable. So your foundation, your background fabrics, the focal point, some bigger pieces over here as background, and then how do you want to bring these to the front and bring them alive. And the last and final stage is, on this one, applying your leaves and doing your slow stitching. Now I found some large, I don't know what that textile thread was used for, but I found some at the thrift store. Some was green, some was brown. And I just twirled it around and couched it down to look like a vine. If I did this one again, I probably wouldn't use these lace sleeves, although they look fine and I had the right colors, but I would probably cut out leaves out of fabric and either raw edge or needle turn applique them on there. Greens are funny. You can see there's about 8 different shades of green in this, but if you're careful about matching and blending, it all works. For instance, there's a muddy green over here and a muddy green in this fabric. And there's a bright chartreuse here, so I put some bright chartreuse leaves. There's a normal grass green, and that's what this is in some of these shades over here. It can all be done. And isn't it fun? So this will be up on my Etsy site as a kit also, as well as this original item is up for sale there, or will be by tomorrow. And this one is already on my Etsy site, and you can make it your own. I hesitate to say too much about what I would do because it maybe would be totally different than your style or your taste. And then, of course, when you're done, and okay, one suggestion I could make when you're stitching. Oh, I forgot to talk about that, for goodness sake. When you're stitching your backgrounds down, you can either do that by hand or you can do a simple stitch on the sewing machine just to get that layer where you want it. Then you can go back and hand stitch the edges or whatever. For instance, on this one, I sewing machined just around enough to hold everything in place. And there's probably a nice fabric underneath that, but I just decided to cover it up in view of having the birdhouse. So if you want to get the bulk of the work done first, just run a simple, and I would keep it on the straights, like come here, turn a corner, go down here, come up here, turn a corner. You know, you want it to eventually disappear, and it will. And then what you want to bring out, you can do in a slow stitch by hand with a floss. Okay, so I hope that has piqued your interest and give you a little creativity for today. And check out my Etsy site and watch my channel over the next several days for several more videos because I have been really lagging behind. I have about 10 projects to show you, and most of them will have kits with them on my Etsy site. Okay, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give me a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. If you love fabric arts and paper arts, I'd love to have you aboard. Thanks for watching. Bye.